back to Petrol Zone. Today we're going to be looking at the KTM 250 EXC-F, and the F stands for 4-stroke. Here it is behind me. This is a long-term test. I've had this vehicle for maybe 2-3 years now, so I thought it's about time that I let you guys know what I thought of it, really. If you're looking to buy one, watch this first. Here she is, 250 EXC-F, 4-stroke, 250cc. Pretty much standard, apart from this one's had the carb rejetted. There's a common thing with these that they bog down a little bit at low rev, so I've rejetted the carb to try and sort of counter that. It's a lot better, but it's still got, compared to say the likes of a 450, not quite the same low down torque. It's more of a high revving machine, this, so you need to be kind of on the revs to get the best out of it. WP shocks and forks as standard on these. This is what KTM are good at. They're good with suspension. It's got about 4.5 inches of travel on the front and about just over 7 inches of travel on the rear shock. Standard Brembo brakes on it. They come with this. Brakes are fairly good on it. Again, another KTM Forte. The graphics are fairly good on this one. I've actually fitted a Trail Tech stand to it. The standard stand is terrible. Makes the bike lean over too much. This was very expensive, but it was worth it given the amount I use it. I think in the region of £125 just for the stand and the bracket, but as you can see from the mounting, it's a much more sort of sturdy arrangement. Again, mentioned carburetor model, so you know, you need the choke on when you start it from cold. I've actually fitted the extra, just here you can see underneath where it says 3, that's the air mixture screw, and that's like with a knurled kind of end to it, so I can adjust that on the fly. Well, effectively pull over and tweak it for colder or warmer weather. On the handlebars, I've fitted the hand guards, which help a lot for bushes and things like that. This one's got the forks, front forks, sort of air bleed valves in it, and if you can see just down there, you just push those and it hisses at you and bleeds the air out of the fork. I've got the mobile phone mount on it as well, just so I can sort of bring up maps and things like that, which is really good. It's quite a high mileage model, this one. I've got about 9,000 miles on it, 350 hours, 2007, so, but still runs really well. It's a fallacy about the needing to change engine oil and pistons, etc. after every ride. That's nonsense. When you're green laning, you don't need to do that. I do it, say, every 500 miles maybe, and it runs fine. This one's got, I think I'm on a 50 sprocket, 50 tooth rear sprocket and a 13 front sprocket. This is adjustable, you can fit whatever you want on there, really. When I bought it, it came with a 48 tooth, and I found that just a little bit too sort of longer geared, really, and with it only being a 250 with not enough torque, it was a struggle to get the front wheel in the air, and it was quite tricky, really. So they This model weighs about 107 kilograms dry, so I think that's ready to race, so with engine oil and fluids but no fuel, and I think fuel, the tank's about 8.5 litres, so a full tank of fuel is probably another 7 kilos on top maybe, so you're talking about 113, I think that is total. Now the more modern KTMs, you're looking at sort of 102, 103 kilos dry, so then add the fuel, so probably a 5 kilogram weight saving. And as we all know, on off-road bikes the weight is imperative. The lower the weight, the easier it is to ride off-road, especially if you're a novice, at the expense of low-down torque. Exhaust is standard on this one. I've got indicators fitted. That's about it really. Nice machine, good looking. It's got the electric start and the kick start should you need it. This one's got a fan kit on it, but to be honest, it doesn't really need it, the 250. Well, let's go down it and ride. Again, I find myself at the start of a green lane, so let's go see how the bike performs off-road. So on the road, I know it's pretty bumpy. The knobbly tyres are probably what's causing this. Also the seat's fairly hard. Long journeys can cause quite a lot of bottom soreness. If you wear maybe padded shorts, that helps, but you just cannot get over the fact that your bottom is going to become sore after say 70-80 miles in the saddle. You can get softer seats, but these are expensive. You can also get a lower seat, which brings me onto the seat height. The overall height of the bike is pretty high. If you've got short legs, it's quite tricky to touch the floor, especially if you pull up at traffic lights and things like that, especially if you pull up on a camber. 1 foot down is not too much of an issue, but you notice this off-road as well. For short-legged riders, it can be quite a confidence killer, really. You can lower them, but then that's detrimental to the handling. So and the ground clearance is pretty useful getting over rocks. But that ground clearance transfers to the road pretty well, because you can really throw the thing into corners. You can lean it over at some good angles in the dry, especially when you can rely on the knobbly tyres in the to grip in the dry. In the wet, however, those knobbly tyres kind of work against you, really. It doesn't work that well on greasy roads. You can feel quite a bit of slip going on. Luckily there's not that much torque, so out of corners it's not that easy to get the back wheel sliding, which also helps off-road, especially for novices. In a 450, for instance, there's so much torque at the back wheel that it's pretty easy to get it slipping and sliding. Great if you know what you're doing, not so good for the rest of us novices. So that low torque can help you out on the road and off-road, but does mean that getting up to speed can be quite frustrating sometimes out of a corner unless you're on the revs. You learn to ride it differently. Once you get used to that, you just learn to be in the right gear at the right time. And once it is on song, if you like, it can pretty much accelerate fairly well. I mean, the top speed, you're talking 80 miles an hour, depending on your gearing. That's not that much different to the likes of a 450. So it's pretty good once it gets going. The lightweight makes it very nimble, and obviously that helps off-road as well, transfers to the road. And also the extra height gives you a good view of the road, especially when you're looking across the roof of other cars and at junctions and things like that, over dry stone walls. So it's quite a nice commanding high view. So as a kind of on-road vehicle, it's great, but I would say the likes of a 450 and maybe even a 350 is a far better prospect for road riding. And obviously if you're going to ride them on the road regularly, you need to maybe swap to Supermoto wheels. They're obviously 17 inch rather than the 21 and 18 that's on it now, 21 front, 18 rear. So it would drop the ride height quite considerably as well, which would help for getting your feet down. But I think Supermoto wheels with this chassis would make for a fantastic kind of B-road weapon. But you'd probably need the 450 for the pace, the extra pace out of corners, etc. But overall, great bike to ride on the road. Let's face it though, they're made for off-road. So guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.